Hi, welcome to the Take 5 podcast, the show that helps strengthen firefighters in protecting those relationships that matter most. I'm your host, Lee Sullivan, licensed mental health counselor and certified emotionally focused therapist. I'm so glad you're here today. Welcome back. Today is part 1 in a 3-part series on discovering your attachment style. We talk a lot about attachment, and it may be confusing. And so I thought we would take some time today to really take a deep dive into attachment patterns or attachment styles and what they are. Attachment is a developmental theory originally founded by John Bowlby and later continued with Mary Ainsworth, and then the two of them collaborated from the 50s through the late 80s on research. And they were interested in the factors around what either block or enhance our adaptability when we're under stress. Bowlby talked about the development of attachment, and that it originally is developed in our early years of childhood, but it is refined throughout our adolescence, and we can continue to refine it and build secure attachment into adulthood, well into adulthood. So we can learn or build our secure form of attachment patterns into adulthood at any stage of life. Currently, there are believed to be 4 attachment patterns. There's a secure form of attachment, there's avoidant, resistant or ambivalent attachment, and disorganized attachment. So secure attachment is where you have feelings of trust and safety in relationships. As a child, you probably felt safe and supported by your caregivers or your parents. You were able to, in adulthood, you're able to create intimacy through vulnerability while maintaining a sense of autonomy. Avoidant attachment was really developed through the absence of a responsiveness from your caregivers. So avoidant attachment oftentimes looks like disregarding our own struggles or our own needs in order to maintain peace or keep a sense of connection. In adulthood, you might struggle with feeling anxiety or sadness, but you do so alone. You tend to not bring someone into that experience with you. And you might even deny the importance of feeling sad or alone. Resistant or ambivalent attachment originates from an inconsistent form of caregiving. So, in other words, a caregiver, a parent, sometimes met your needs and sometimes neglected you. And so you never knew when your needs were going to be met. And so you develop this high vigilance, and you might express your needs very intensely to compensate for a caregiver's lack of responsiveness. A coping strategy for a resistant or ambivalent form of attachment is leaving the room when you feel stressed or frustrated. This protective response is used far more by people with resistant attachment than people with other forms of attachment patterns. A disorganized form of attachment is believed to be the result of both abuse and trauma in childhood. This is where an individual learns that your attachment figure, in other words, the person who you love and who is responsible for your safety, is also someone to be feared. You oscillate between 2 biological drives. On one hand, this need to love and connect with others, and on the other hand, a need to protect and keep yourself safe. There's an intense loneliness. Because there's a constant, earnest longing for connection, while at the same time, fear can cause you to drive away those very connections that you seek. So that would be, just in a nutshell, a form of disorganized attachment. You can certainly look up more of this on Psychology Today does vet and do some fact-checking in their articles, so that's a great place for more data if you do not have access to peer-reviewed articles. Secure attachment is linked with resilience, it's linked with confidence, a sense of belonging and security, stability. It's linked with an ability to self-disclose and assert yourself, not in an aggressive way, but just in a confident way. It's also linked with the ability to tolerate ambiguity or a different perspective than your own, and a capacity to see outside or beyond yourself. Insecure patterns of attachment are linked with vulnerability for depression and anxiety disorders, post-traumatic stress injury and post-traumatic stress disorders, personality disorders, and substance use disorders. And by the way, these are the same vulnerabilities that we see frequently diagnosed among firefighters. The bulk of today is going to be centered around some questions and some journaling on your part, so you can really discover what your own attachment patterns are. So I've taken questions and adapted them from a couple intake questionnaires from Dr. Scott Woolley and Dr. Sue Johnson. She's the founder of Emotionally Focused Therapist. Dr. Scott Woolley is a certified EFT therapist, trainer, and supervisor. And so these are vetted experts, and we've just adapted some of their questions. So if you have the chance right now, I'd really encourage you, go grab a pen and paper, grab your journal. These questions are going to be very self-reflective. They're not going to be easy answers. And if you're driving in your car right now, go ahead and listen to the whole duration of the podcast. But I'd encourage you to come back and listen to the questions and then pause me in between each question so that you can really get the most out of this. I don't want rote answers. This is a fantastic exercise to discover more of yourself. So the first question is, who did you turn to for support or comfort when you were young? Could you always count on this person? When were you most likely to be comforted by this person or these people? How did you let them know that you needed connection or you needed comfort? What did you do to signal your need for comfort? Did this person ever betray you, or were they unavailable at a critical time in your life? And this is determined by you. Did you need them in a moment of life and they weren't, either couldn't be available for you or chose not to be available for you? What did you learn about comfort or connection from this person? And this could be positive or negative. What did you learn about comfort? What did you learn about yourself? And what did you learn about others? Spend time on these questions. Really think through them. This is, like I said, this is only part one of a 3-part series. We're going to continue more of these questions as we dive deeper into understanding our own attachment patterns. But really take the time to think about these questions. It's an opportunity for deeper discovery about yourself, how you view your intimate partner now, how you perceive yourself, and how, or if you're even allowed to reach for connection, or if it feels safe to you to even ask for connection or comfort. Your responses to these questions will begin to reveal your own attachment patterns. Because this content is a lot to take in, we're just going to digest it one bite at a time. Okay, so this is it. I want you to spend a lot of time really contemplating these questions and your answers to them. In summary, there's 4 attachment styles. There's secure attachment, avoidant attachment, resistant attachment, or ambivalent, used to be called attachment, and disorganized attachment. Insecure patterns of connection are linked with vulnerability for the most frequently diagnosed disorders we see among firefighters. Secure attachment can be developed at any stage of life. The first step is being able to identify what our current attachment patterns are so that we can begin to change what patterns or parts of those patterns no longer serve us well. Thank you for joining me today as we begin to ask the questions where we can identify our own attachment patterns. Join me next week as we continue this deep dive in this 3-part series on our attachment patterns and how we can develop a form of secure attachment to ourselves and to our intimate partners. Our references for all the research cited in today's episode will be listed in the podcast notes at take5withlee.com. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to our time next week. For a list of references used in today's episode, please visit our website at take5withlee.com. You'll also find more resources for first responders that have been vetted for cultural competence. Remember, what we see, we can change one feeling, one message, one conversation at a time. Thank you for joining me as we learn to tap into our emotion signals, which will ultimately build resilience, protecting and preserving those relationships that matter most. Be safe out there and be well.